It's not not everybody had a good experience, and that needs to be acknowledged, because I think there's also such a high mortality rate in the US for moms and for babies. And it's really sad because we have one of the highest mortality rates for moms and babies, I think, in the US compared to other countries. And we're one of the most developed countries. Like, it doesn't add up.
So what is going on?
Welcome back to another episode of Dear Dilemma. If you guys have been keeping up on our videos, you have noticed that maybe like a week or two ago, we had a parenthood dilemma. And we said, we'll make a part 2 because we were just like really getting into it. So
and I've got questions because I've never had a kid.
Yeah. So this is like our part 2. We got kind of deep on that episode. I got a little bit emotional. So if you haven't watched that, definitely circle back.
Yeah.
Watch that one and then
come back to this one.
Yeah. Because we kind of talked about, like, should you have kids? Should you not have kids? And I shared a little bit about, just how emotionally, like, taxing sometimes being a mom is, but like it's so important too, and like
healing your inner childhood trauma that you don't know really comes out.
You're like triggered by it, and then we kind of talked about birth and stuff. So yeah, I don't know, Brooke, what questions do you have for me, girl?
I have so many, and I posted. Well, I think we talked about but we didn't really talk about it. I just mentioned it when we said they need to put sex ed back in high school, and they need to really deepen that stuff because I'm telling you, I took one sex ed class in 8th grade and it was like nothing. Like I don't really feel like it covered anything. And then when you get older and you have friends who have kids, and like I've had a couple that were in high school that had kids, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like what's this and what happens and all that. And now I ask Hannah because I still have yet to have a kid. Maybe one day. I don't know. It's scary. Okay, so there's things I have. So we'll get into like the birthing, I guess, because we obviously know how a kid is made. And
yeah, we'll skip that part for little ears and listeners.
when you find out you're pregnant.
Yeah.
Ooh, we'll get into this, but not that we have experienced. It'll probably happen to me. Cryptic pregnancies.
Oh, what's that? Like when you think you're pregnant, but you're not?
No, when you don't know you're pregnant. And then you go in for abdominal pain and you...
I don't know how these girls do it. Do you remember the TLC show that was like...
There was literally a girl in our town.
No. That didn't know she was pregnant?
No.
And then just had the kid like 2 weeks later? Or
like
had
went
the kid
into
there?
the hospital for stomach pain.
That's wild, you guys. I could never...
that would be
for
me.
Sure knew I was pregnant because I was as big as a beach ball. Like, how in the world do you not know that you are pregnant?
There's another girl that went... So we're already going off topic, but here we go. There's another girl that went virtual on social media who went to IU, who was pregnant and she didn't know it. And she has pictures of like leading up.
And flat stomach?
Yeah.
That's wild.
Because I guess they like lay further back.
Yeah. Well, and they say that if your placenta is in the front, like an anterior placenta, then you don't ever feel the baby kick because that placenta is there.
Yeah, so and not everyone gets sick, or, like for the girl in college, she may have gotten sick and she probably brushed it off as like a hangover. Because if you don't know you're pregnant, you're probably drinking.
Yeah. Wild.
Crazy. Mm-hmm. That's going to happen to me. I'm going to be like, my IBS pain, and then poop out a kid.
I was going to say, actually poop out a kid on the toilet.
Think I'm going to the hospital? They ain't charging me for a delivery fee. I already delivered it myself. I've been begging my sister-in-law. She's a nurse practitioner, and she just went to her new job this past week. And I was like, can you please quit going to these areas and go into a midwife so you can birth my kid at home for free? Mm-hmm. And we don't tell anybody. She's like, I'm not doing that. But my brother also has birthed 2 children because being, paramedic and stuff.
Oh,
so
yeah,
he
true.
could also...
He could just catch your baby.
I just don't think that's a little too personal. I'd rather... that's a lot. But anyways, getting into that.
Yeah.
Birth. You birth your kid.
Yeah.
I've learned just watching videos that come across your feed and stuff that, you either go into labor naturally or you're induced. And I heard being induced is worse than going into labor naturally.
Yeah, Pitocin is the devil.
I don't know what that is.
That
I just
out
know
there.
that it makes you go into labor and it hurts worse.
Yeah, Pitocin like makes you have more strong and consistent contractions. So they'll keep turning you up on it, and it's, like it's kind of like a fake drug, right? Like giving you all these symptoms
Sounds
and
awful.
It makes it worse. But I will just kind of, I don't know, jump in and just say I think that there are a lot of women that don't share their birth stories. And I think the reason why you don't always know everything about birth stories is because there's a lot of birth trauma out there. And that's like a real thing. So I just want to acknowledge that because there's so many women that, you might ask like, hey, how was your birth? Oh my gosh.
It's not all births
mine
are the
was
same.
amazing and blah, blah, blah. And it's not not everybody had a good experience. And that needs to be acknowledged because I think there's also such a high mortality rate in the U.S. for moms and for babies. And it's really sad because we have one of the highest mortality rates for moms and babies, I think, in the U.S. compared to other countries. And we're one of the most developed countries. Like, it doesn't add up.
So what is going on?
But I think a lot of it is because, and this is kind of my own take on it, so I could be wrong. Like, definitely drop comments, whatever, that's fine. My take on it, though, is just that there's so much push for like OBGYN doctors to induce or to do C-sections. And you're going against what
your natural body knows what to do.
Yes.
Which like you're saying, like, obviously if you're not contracting and you need to get this baby out because it's not safe for the baby.
But they intervene too quickly.
Yeah.
Or too early.
Because I think in my mind, like, back in the day when there wasn't the hospitals, your body's going to but again, mortality rate probably were higher back in the day too because there wasn't blood transfusions and things
Right.
like that. But then I think, which I know we're nothing like animals, but if you like watch a video of like a horse giving birth or something, they just do it.
Yeah.
No one's intervening. No one's giving them medication. Like, your body, like, I would, and this is like, you can have a birthing plan, but it
it could go out the window really quickly.
Like, I would rather not be induced. I'd rather just keep going into, like, maybe they have their timeline off. Maybe I'm not 40 weeks. Maybe I'm really 38 and they don't know what they're talking about.
Well, I think that's a really good point, actually, because they say that you should carry a baby, actually, like, typically it's 41 weeks is what's actually accurate, but they go by like the start of your period, which makes it only 40 weeks. And then a lot of times they try to induce you like even a week or two before that.
But what about women whose periods aren't consistent?
Exactly.
Then what do you go off of? There's got to be a way to test to be like, get an exact.
The most accurate ultrasound is the first one, like 11 to 14 weeks. And then, like as you get ultrasounds when it's closer to birth, those are like the most inaccurate ones. So a lot of times they make these women like, hey, you're going to have a 10-pound baby and you're going to not be able to give natural birth and your hips are too small. And then they'll like just say you have to have a C-section. They schedule it. And a lot of women are like, I could have birthed that. Like, I could have been fine.
But
and their baby was small.
True. However, I have a friend who is like short and tiny like us.
Yeah.
And we're not talking about like fit, guys. We're talking about our height.
Yeah,
Chill.
just like we're 5'2", 5'3".
Okay. And we're like really short. And they made her push for like 2 or 3 hours. And she was already had a bigger pound baby.
Oh, really?
And she was at a high risk hospital too. So instead of them being like, okay, we've tried for like, maybe we'll give you 30 minutes and we can't, you should have done a C-section. Now she's having a ton of complications in her body. Her baby's a year old now and has had I should bring her on. She probably would not speak, but she knows who she is and we talk all the time and it is insane. And they just now finally got down to what caused it.
Really?
And it was more than likely like her pushing for too long, her body not being able to handle it, and it's jacked her all up.
Well, yeah, because the other thing too,
which is insane.
It is. It's sad, like the amount of trauma that's surrounded by our healthcare system that is just enforcing these things to happen. Now, I understand needing medically to intervene at certain points in labor, but I do think that there's something to be said about sitting back and allowing the mom to progress as they feel like they can.
Yeah.
But there also are caveats to that. Like if you get an epidural, then you can't tell when you need to push because you can't feel anything.
My goal is to not have an epidural because my mom had epidurals. I think she went natural with one of us, and she's had now like 2 back surgeries and stuff, which I'm wondering if that stems from.
Well, I've had a lot of people that have had an epidural say that they still like feel exactly where the epidural went in at and like have pain there.
No, I would rather just get through the nightmare of what's going on here.
And you have to have a higher pain tolerance if you're going to. Like I went naturally. I did not have an epidural. And one of the reasons why I didn't get an epidural was because I had essentially an epidural with a knee surgery, and I was leaking spinal fluid for like 3 days, and I barely could get up. I couldn't go to the bathroom without like passing out.
Not as intense of an epidural, right? Or is it the same?
It's a spinal block, so it's essentially like pretty close.
Also, that's scary too. You could paralyze me before I even give birth.
Right. I know. I'm just like, I just didn't want it.
I just seen where people do it naturally. They bounce back faster after birth within the first like couple hours. And they just they have a faster recovery. And it's not for everyone. I could say that, and then like by 2 centimeters, I'd be like,
like I'm done. Yeah, you don't really know until you get into it.
And I had a kidney stone.
You said that, yeah.
I thought I was dying. I was like throwing up. It was awful. I was like, get me to the ER. It's my appendix. I thought it was my appendix because of where the pain was at. And I was like, just let me be. And they were like, it's a kidney stone. And everyone's like, well, you can have birth now naturally because that's way worse than a baby.
There you go.
That a little teeny tiny stone is worse than a freaking 7 to 9 pound baby.
I've heard that actually a lot. I also think
crazy.
If you have the epidural, you can't move, so you can't reposition and allow the baby to descend more.
To lay,
those are benefits. I do think too, you'd never know what's going to happen. So like you could be partially in birth and then like the baby's shoulder gets stuck, or there's always those things. But so birth is scary. I mean, I think it is definitely a scary thing, but it is something that can be really beautiful and it can be really traumatic. So it depends on your experience and what you've been through.
And just know you're not alone if you've had a traumatic birth experience, because I see it all the time on TikTok where women are starting to share their experiences and other women are commenting saying, thank you. I thought I was alone, or I'm nervous. I'm getting ready to have mine, or maybe my birth plan didn't go as it seemed. So you're not alone. Yeah. And to future moms like me, like you think you might have it figured out and what you want, and it could be different. Yeah. And you still have questions. Yeah. Because we're almost out of time, but I still have questions that maybe I just need to go get like a birthing book and just read up on it for fun.
Well,
I didn't know you birthed the placenta.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was attached to your body on the inside.
That's so amazing. I literally was like, can I see that? Like, I'm not one.
I want my baby to stay connected to it for as long as possible because they say it's really good for nutrients. I'm praying that my midwife that I have, which they're top in Ohio, listens to, like, if I ever have a kid, listens to what I want. Yeah. Because, like, I don't think I want to have a baby laying on my back. If I don't have an epidural, I want to, like, I'm telling you guys, the best position for me when I was having my kidney stone and prepping for a colonoscopy when your stomach is in pain was just leaning over like a cow, almost like leaning and I'm telling you, there's different ways. And I think it also, and again, I've never had a kid, and you may be able to speak on this, but when you are in labor and you're like, no one's listening to what you want. The doctors and nurses aren't listening because they think they're in control, but you know your body. Yeah. Take control. Yeah. Fight them. What are they going to do? Call security on you while you're mid-birth?
It's true. Like, you can fire people. You can give them out of your room. Like, I've had stories shared with me about friends that, like, had an episiotomy, which is, like, where they cut you without, like, consent. And to me, that's, like, messed up. I'm like, no, I would want
where? Down there?
To let the baby, like, more space for the baby to come out. And I'm like, but that alone causes so many more issues later, like with like urinating and all of that. So, it's like you have to also have someone in the room that can advocate for you. Like, I had a copy of my birth plan. I gave it to my husband. I was like, I don't let this XYZ happen. And I had like certain things that I was like, do not let that happen because I know I won't be able to talk or advocate for myself because I'm going to be in too much pain, but I need you to advocate for me. And he's like, I got your back. So like have that person that's there and able to do that for you. And, like, do your research, like, look into some YouTube videos and things like that.
I will apparently need to.
Well, I knew I wanted to have a natural birth, like you were talking about. So I took this class where they talked about holding an ice cube in your hand.
Oh, I've heard about that.
And you like have to kind of close your eyes and like deal with like the burning and the pain and stuff. And they're like, it's all about where you go mentally and during that pain.
Yeah, and telling yourself like, the whole breathing in and breathing out. I do have a question though.
Yeah,
because you've given birth. One of the big debates is, well, I don't know if it's big, but I would assume it is if it was in a situation where you had to save one or the other, you or the baby.
Oof. Oh, that's tough.
What do you have your husband pick? That should be in your birth plan.
Yikes. I don't know, actually. I don't know that was one of the conversations that we had.
I feel like that should be a conversation because it has happened before.
I mean, obviously, I would want my husband to choose the baby. I mean, yeah. I mean, I think I would want but then again,
selfishly,
it's like,
I would want to choose me because as sad as it would be to lose our baby and our kid, you will still have me to then.
I don't know.
Provide, like, hopefully have another chance.
That's a tough question.
Because then what? He has a kid and he doesn't have
the mom or the support system or I don't know. That's a
please drop a comment.
Yeah, that's a tough question. Me, I have no idea.
I feel like I would be almost selfish in a way to be like, no, pick me because it's going to be very traumatizing and everything to lose our baby, but we can lean on each other for that and go through that grief together. Whereas if you choose the baby, you have a newborn and you're trying to grieve losing your wife or whoever.
Well, that's true. I mean, in the airplane.
Am I wrong?
No, I think in the airplane, they say like you have to do your own and then, the person next to you, but
screw them kids. Get your own.
Yeah,
I'm kidding. Actually, I was saying with the air mask, they're always like, put yours on first, then help the children. I'm like, what? Why
they
do you put them on the children first?
I think a pastor asked this one time, and they were like, okay, say you're a family and you have kids and you're lost at sea and you're all drowning.
Who do
you can only choose one person to save. The pastor answered and he said, you should always choose your spouse. And I was like flabbergasted. I'm like,
what if you don't like your spouse?
Wouldn't we like divide and conquer? Like one, like I go for this kid, you go for that kid, and like we all try to make it out. But like he was making the point
you would just let two of them go.
No, I was saying that like I would fight for myself and grab one kid, and my husband would grab the other kid, and then all four of us would live. Psh.
Yeah, that would make sense.
But
also, let me drown. I ain't trying to. I'm going to be out there in the middle of the ocean anyways. This will be.
Okay, Titanic.
Sorry, we get off topic.
The pastor said something about like how though you should always choose your spouse before your children because like your spouse comes first and then your children are always second. Like when you come home, you should always greet your spouse. Like you should be that.
Like anchor?
Yeah, I guess.
In a way? Mm-hmm. What if you don't like your spouse and that's a good timing to be like, gotta get the kids.
Choose the baby, not me.
See you later. Catch you when you get here.
Man, that made me sad. I don't really know. That's a really tough question, but it's true.
I thought that was like a thing they talk about in birth plans because I've heard it so many times.
I think we talked about so many other things, like everything else but that.
Yeah, it's a good question. Let us know what you think.
Yeah. If you guys have any other questions about birthing or recovery, we didn't really get to talk about...
Don't go to Dr. Google.
Yeah. We didn't really get to talk about recovery. I was going to kind of mention a little bit about like physical therapy. So one thing that I wanted to talk about a little bit is just maybe consulting a pelvic floor physical therapist after you give birth. Because if you are having issues with peeing... like yourself while you're laughing or coughing or like my mom, like, jumping around. That's not normal. There also can be an ab separation. So it's called diastasis recti, and essentially your abs completely separate from each other, and you can check that by like putting your fingers right underneath your belly button and seeing like how many finger widths difference between your abs. If it's like greater than 2 or 3 fingers, then you're positive for that. So you can actually heal your core. Healing your core is probably one of the best things that you can do after giving birth, regardless of how you gave birth. Because if you get back to just like lifting weights or working out and doing this and that, and you don't heal your core first, you can actually make that separation worse. So there's a lot of things that, aren't told to people and aren't shared. But one of the best things that you can do is ask your physician about pelvic floor physical therapy, after giving birth, and just maybe see if you can get a consult if you're having any of those issues. I wish they gave like a pamphlet to every mom, like, hey,
They
call
should.
us if you have XYZ like symptoms. And there's kind of some more into it. I'm just touching on it a little bit because you can also kind of like Google some of that stuff, but definitely doing posterior pelvic tilts are really important after giving birth, diaphragmatic breathing. So those are some places that you can maybe start looking into if you've just recently given birth before you get back into a lot of activity.
It's a lot. It's a lot of things that they don't tell you and that they should tell you.
They should.
Because they're not, they just say, slap a sticker on the baby and say, okay, have a great time of your life, and send you home, and you're like, what do I do? And
Figure it out.
You're so focused on the baby that you're not focused on your own body.
Yeah, not to mention that they don't really even teach you how to breastfeed. And then you got to wait for a lactation consultant, and you're like, my kid's not gaining weight, and I don't know what to do. I'm shoving my nipple in their mouth, and they're not drinking. I don't know what's going on.
What's happening?
So being a mom is just a lot. You have a lot of recovery time
for yourself.
Yes. Don't be afraid to ask questions.
They don't give you the right answer. They ignore you. Go to someone else then.
Yeah. And, really hold on to those support people that are providing you support and helping you through. Postpartum is just such a hard time. But if you are pregnant, I promise you it is totally worth it. Go back and watch my Parenthood Dilemma. You will understand how much having a kid and bringing a kid into this world is just incredible. It's the most amazing experience you'll ever go through as a person. And even though it brings up our childhood traumas, it is literally just the most beautiful thing. So.
He's so sweet. And I love my nieces and my nephew. And it makes you want one, but then I'm like, I love my nap time. And I love going home to a quiet house.
One day we're going to talk Brooke into having one because she'd be such a good mom. But...
debatable. Anyways, we hope you enjoyed this episode, or part 2 of our family
Parenthood Dilemma type thing.
Exactly.
Birth,
and,
all the things.
Yeah, and if you are open and willing to share your birth story or anything, please drop it below, because whether it's a positive or traumatic experience, I'm sure it can help somebody else out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, stay tuned next week when we have another dilemma to share.
And make sure you subscribe and then follow us on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Dear Dilemma Official.
See you next time.